Hey, welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So, my guest today is Owen Anderson. He's a professor of philosophy, Arizona State University. He loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like I do. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. He's in a fight against DEI. He's been battling all sorts of things like a true fighter. And we're going to get into it. Also, we're going to talk about females and self-defense and why jiu-jitsu is the answer. Welcome to the show, Owen Anderson. How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So first, man, give me your quick bio, and then I want to hear how you came into the jujitsu world. But let's start with
Yeah.
philosophy and your background and all those good things.
Yeah, so I'm a professor at Arizona State University. Been there for 25 years. I teach philosophy and religion. So I've really been I mean I'm a Christian. I was raised a Christian, and I've really been in the belly of the intellectual beast for my whole career, and dealing with everything from, COVID lockdowns recently, radical leftist ideologies, and just really discrimination against Christians. And so that's one of the reasons I've been speaking up. I'm also pastor of Christ the King Church here in Phoenix, which is a Reformed church. So I'm active, obviously, in Christianity, and I don't take it lightly when somebody says Christianity should be removed from our universities. So I've been speaking up about that. I've been writing over my on my Substack, which is Dr. Owen Anderson, and just showing parents, really my audience is parents who've worked hard for educating their children K to 12, and then their child goes off to maybe to be an engineer or a nurse, ends up at a school like ASU, and parents don't know how bad it is. I think generally people say, okay, these are liberal universities. We understand that they're morally corrupt, but they don't know the depth of it. And so I get emails from parents who read my Substack and they say, "Wow, I didn't know that's what they're doing there." So part of my goal has been kind of like being a spy in the land and to report back to parents, potential students, so they're prepared and they know what they're going to encounter.
Yeah, so let's land on that for a little bit. Yeah, I think that remember parents, especially look, I went through public school. I'm 50 years old now. I did some college, and going through that when I was going through it, you're like, oh yeah, it's just
Mhm.
okay, it's a problem. It's not, but I remember it. They remember it a certain way,
Yep.
and they don't realize that it didn't stay that certain way, and
Yep.
it is downright hostile to a Christian point of view. The irony in that is Harvard was a Christian
Mhm.
school, and
Yep.
all of these universities were formed, as theological
Yeah.
seminaries, and they were, there to give the people a well-rounded education, but it was all based on Christian principles. And
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
it just got perverted and taken over as an institution over time, and that's what we're facing. It didn't just stay at this low standard. I mean, it went straight depravity, and it went that way quick.
Well, that's right. I mean, all of our best private schools, the original ones we think of, as you say, they're all founded on clearly Christian principles with Christian purposes. Now, the state universities are different, but the
Right.
idea of a state university is that the citizens of a state should have access to affordable college education. And so we recognize it's a pluralist society. You're not going to have it be, based on Christian ideas, but it also shouldn't be anti-Christian.
Right.
And a lot of people confuse the First Amendment. They think the First Amendment means the government can be anti-Christian, and it can't. So state universities, they're violating the First Amendment when they are anti-Christian and discriminating against Christians.
Yeah, and it is expressly, a hostile environment, and the left uses our, good nature against us when
Yep.
we say, okay, hey, we're going to be accepting, we're going to be tolerant of other points of views. We are a pluralistic society. When the truth is, they want a secular humanist ideology to be the religion of the day. Um,
100%.
and they don't want any Christian influence whatsoever, and so they work against us. And because Christians are nice people, and generally, unfortunately, we've been taken over by a little bit of a feminization of Christianity. We don't have, warrior fighters out there saying, no, that's nonsense, and we accept a form of genuine prosecution on the college campuses. I think it's turning around.
Yeah.
in some pretty obvious ways. TPUSA, I'm on one of Charlie's boards. Charlie Kirk and others have been driving that change and getting people to stand up and essentially go at the other side and stake our own space and our own claim to this great heritage.
Yeah, 100%. And then we can talk about TPUSA because I'm actually the ASU student. I'm the faculty advisor for the TPUSA clubs, and I'm the
Awesome.
only. We have thousands of professors. I'm the only guy they could find. The students. We have 4 campuses. 3 of them have clubs, and I'm the faculty advisor for all 3 because no other professor would do it, which is
Well,
crazy.
none of the rest train Brazilian
That's
jiu-jitsu.
right.
So
Yeah. Yep. But I really, that's 100% true. And I also think Charlie Kirk transformed our campuses because what he did 8 years ago, he started going to campuses, setting up and saying, "Hey, let's talk," right?
yep.
And anybody can come and ask him a question. Now, this is what our campuses should be like, and they're not. They have controlled speech by the radical left, but they should be places where you debate. And he showed the conservative principles and Christian principles win when you have open
Yep.
debate. And he
Well,
really did change
because
college students' minds. It's amazing.
well, well, their ideas don't and policies and philosophies do not stand up to scrutiny,
No, no,
which
no.
is why they censor. There's no other reason to censor otherwise. It's we have bad ideas and we don't want your ideas out there.
Yeah. So yeah, just
Because
last week we had a we had an event where we were bringing in a Catholic scholar, and she argues for biblical marriage. And so the trans activists on our campus wrote an open letter, and it was signed by professors, signed by graduate students. And what it said was, we approve of free speech, yeah, right, but she doesn't get free speech because she's literally threatening the lives of trans people.
Mhm.
How is she literally, the word they use, no one's threatening anybody's life. But
Yeah.
that's how they try to get around free speech, is because if they can pin on the other person that they're somehow a violent person, she's not, she's an older Catholic lady, then she doesn't get free speech.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, yeah, it's bizarre. You saw the trend a while ago, and here's what I think happened. Parents of conservative, parents in conservative families did not talk to their kids around the dinner table of why they believed what they believed.
Yep.
So by the time the kids entered into college, it was taken for granted that, oh, my kid, was raised in a Christian household. He's conservative. Oh, it's a good kid. He loves Jesus. They get there, and all their peers, led because of these, woke professors and these professors that were, at their core trained communists,
Mhm.
laugh at the kids and ridicule their positions. They can't defend it. It's like defending your faith. They don't have the training necessary. They don't have the understanding. They don't know why they believe what they believe. And then all the peers jump on like kids do and
Yep.
laugh at them too. And oh, that's so stupid. And then the kid comes out hating Christianity, hating you, hating all of your belief system. And we saw that happen over the last 20, 30 years. But now I think guys like Charlie, guys like you, others are arming these kids, and I think parents got woken up to a certain extent too. My kids hate me. Don't make this mistake.
Yeah,
You
no,
know.
100%. Yep. No, that's right. I think the thing I'm a big advocate for is, you're right, the dinner table, but also family worship. So at
Yeah.
least once a day, you're getting together around the word and you're talking about these things. Because one of the pieces of advice I give parents that come to me is, you've got to prepare your kids, especially, I mean, you can't, there's some things you won't talk to a kindergartner about, but
Right.
especially by the time they're in high school, you got to tell them what's out there. It's bad. So that the first time they hear about amputating healthy body parts to change your gender is not in college. They get in there and they know, okay, that's the nonsense these professors are going to teach. Because what you described does happen, the mocking part. But what I've experienced also is that the professors are wolves in sheep's clothing. So they won't mock you. They'll tell you, oh, I love Jesus. Yeah, he was a really good moral teacher. But of course, that was 2,000 years ago. So a lot of what is in there is no longer applicable. And so they slip in their own teaching past the defenses of these kids. And the kids are just kind of caught off guard. They didn't know what to expect. So they need to be prepared going into it. People that people who live a certain way hate God. That's just the truth. They might smile at you. They might tell you they like Jesus, but if they're actually acting contrary to the word, they don't really like Jesus. They hate God. And you need to be ready for that because, like you said, we're Christians are just nice people. We're accepting, we're tolerant of other views, and that is used against us. That's been used against us for some time now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I could not agree more, and also it goes to you remember the trend that kind of reached its peak a couple of years ago, but the words are violence
Yep.
trend.
That's still there.
Yeah, and I think they lost some of that argument, recently, and now we've kind of done the okay, pow, and backhand them,
Yep.
and then and say, oh wait, no, that's actual violence. You're seeing that trend, and that was because those words are violence, folks. First, they'd never actually experienced any kind of violence,
Mhm.
but it allowed them an extra level of what they would consider self-defense, right?
Yeah.
And they could actually use violence and say that, well, you guys started it, I was just defending myself. And that was kind of the nefarious trend behind it. But that's how they got to the whole term, oh, you're speaking hate, you're endangering my life, you're all of those sort of things. While having been a security consultant for conservatives and providing them with teams around the country and organizing people like Charlie's and all of that stuff, um, you know very quickly the left doesn't have to do that. There's not a version of me on the left. Now, billionaires and wealthy people and people that they're going to steal from have to
Yeah.
have great security teams. But it's not the left. The left walks around with impunity without security teams. Even the big names on the left don't
Wow.
have to fear violence because their side is inherently violent. Our side is not. We're filled with actual protectors. We're filled with mixed
Yeah.
martial artists and Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners and things like that. And we're not the ones that are going out there picking fights.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because one of the favorite things I like to do at a Charlie Kirk event when he comes to ASU is watch his security guys because they look so. I hope I can say they look badass.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
and they
so?
are. They
So
are.
I
No,
like to watch them and just be like, man, I wonder if maybe one day I could get a job doing that.
yeah, yeah. No, those guys. Most of them are pretty significant former operators. They all train hard. They all train jujitsu at some level. They're all great shooters. They're all armed. They're all very dangerous men who have it under voluntary control, which is one of my favorite Jordan
Mhm.
Peterson recommendations.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Dan Flood, who runs that team, is a friend of mine, and
Wow.
they're really really good dudes.
Well, yeah,
So
I might then one day I might if I end up getting fired as a professor, I might end up coming and looking for a job.
yeah, yeah.
But no,
Well,
I think that what you're
I
saying is, I mean, when we were kids, we were told it's sticks and stones that'll break my bones. Words will
yeah,
never hurt me.
yeah.
And as a professor, my whole job is debating people. I mean, any professor should be ready to do that, but especially a philosophy professor, that's just what you're paid to do. You debate views, and other people think you're wrong. And if you cry every time someone thinks you're wrong, you're not going to be able to go to work.
Well, and that sticks and stones phrase was designed to toughen us up. It was designed to say, look, words are tools. Use your words to debate them. It was don't be a child. Grow up and understand that you have boundaries and sovereignty. Don't allow that other person to control you. Don't allow yourself to be bullied by someone. It was all of those things. It was a good lesson to tell kids. And I'll bet there's no lefty household that even preaches that idea anymore. It's
No,
it's
yeah.
really wild.
Well, and yeah, let me give a couple examples of what goes on at ASU because this will help parents and potential students listening. Even if you don't go to ASU, I guarantee if you look into other state schools, you'll find the same stuff. But
Yeah.
right now, ASU is our largest state university in the whole country. We have 180,000 students, and DEI and what is called decolonizing philosophy is deeply embedded into the whole structure of ASU. And I have posts up on my Substack where you can just go on the website. It's not even hidden. I would have thought within the last few weeks they would have taken it down, but they don't. But we've had events like this. Last fall, we had an event, The Benefits of Polyamory. It was about dispelling myths about polyamory. Like the big myth was polyamory is a sin. So they're dispelling that myth. How is that a state university event. Like, why is that even there? Another one was our honors college, which supposedly it presents itself as a place where you could, your classically educated child can go and read the great books and debate about the great ideas. They have an event about the benefits of practicing witchcraft for women. And there you go. You raise your daughter, send her to honors college, and she'll be taught that witchcraft is actually a really good thing. And it was the evil Christians who tried to stop witchcraft.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that is, so if your kids aren't super solid, and by the way, most are not, it
At that
takes,
age, they're
because
not. Yeah.
it's a combination of personality, there's certainly nature and nurture, it's all of those sort of things, but not every kid is really, really strong in who they are, and they're young and they're going to this school trying to quote unquote find themselves, even though I hate that term.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
There's some truth to the fact that there's also, a little bit of rebellion in our hearts,
Yep.
a little bit of I'm going to do something, sometimes just objecting to my parents, finding my way. Some of it's very healthy, by the way. Like I talk about mothers and teenage daughters, there's tension there during those years as those girls are becoming women and trying to figure out their place in the world. And so there's this natural tension. Well, these people who are evil, who are introducing anti-Christian ideas, are introducing them for the purposes of to drive those wedges and give those kids some sort of little deviant track to run on. And
Yep.
and that's the same thing that happened with the transgender thing that got out of control, is these people were preying upon the most vulnerable of girls that were
Mhm.
going through puberty transitions, unhappily trying to figure their way through that. And then they are also autistic and struggling with social challenges in that way. And they say, "Oh, maybe you're a boy instead."
Mhm.
And it is the same level or the same spiritual warfare that you're
Mhm.
dealing with that those people are doing.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, what you just said is really important for people to understand. There is a preying upon this other vulnerable person. And although the age group, let's say from 18 to 22, you're splitting off from your parents. So you're right. You're making your own identity as a young man or young woman. And there's going to be some distancing from mom and dad and making your own beliefs, owning whatever you decide to be. But professors know that that's a vulnerable stage. And so I've sat in faculty meetings where professors are laughing together about destroying the faith of young Christians. So they're not going to tell you that on the promotional material when you look at a college, but that's what they're doing. They're laughing at the parents and they're laughing at the kids about how funny it is to make a kid doubt the faith. And now you and I know that that person, it'd be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck than for them to mislead one of these. So there will be consequences before the judgment seat of God. But in our day, we want parents to want to know that and say, wait a minute, that's what they're doing in faculty meetings. I want to be as far from that school as possible.
Yeah, yeah. No, you cannot be more correct there. So hey, I got an interesting thread the other day, and I just dropped a little bomb into the argument, and I don't know if you were a part of it or you saw me, or that's how we came to connect here, but it had to do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and women. And
Okay.
and so first, before we talk about that, what's your Jiu-Jitsu background? How'd you get into it? How long you been training? What belt are you? Give me a little bit of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so I started a buddy of mine just before COVID wanted to open a Gracie gym under Henner and Huron. So
Oh
they've got a
yeah.
pretty good program. He's opening a gym for them. And I said, hey, I want to be one of your first students. You sold me. So it's about 5 years ago now. And I get into it. And then COVID happened. And so it kind of slows down his ability to open a gym and get into owning it. So we just started meeting in his backyard because the Gracies have something called Gracie garages. And about
Mhm.
6 months into that, he was able to get his gym opened up and he's been able to move up. He's done great. He has so many students, he moved up to a bigger place now. And so I went through their program. They have a program called Combatives that gets you to your early blue belt. And then from there, I went to their instructor training program to then be able to teach their Combatives program. And so now I'm working on my own uh, belts, but I'm also teaching their Combatives program and their what's called RD reflex development program. So I'm on my third stripe on my blue belt. I'm in the blue belt blues. It just takes forever, but it's just a great process. I mean, rolling is the best part of the week. I can't wait for it. So, aside from the Lord's Day, it's just like what you look forward to every week.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. I mean, I started in 1996, and once I got sucked into it,
Mhm.
I was 4 or 5 days a week for probably 10 years in a row.
Yeah.
And yeah, and obsessed. And, I'm sure you read, I'm a fourth degree Machado
Yeah.
black belt. And
Yeah. That's really
been
legit.
yeah, yeah, it's the old school. I remember sitting, it's, not that Harvard is lauded anymore, but it's a little bit like having gone to Harvard. And, when you're sitting in a crowd of jujitsu guys, even other black belts, when they hear that, you got it from direct from the source of the Machado family, which were cousins of the Gracies, as people who
Yeah,
are
yeah.
unfamiliar with them, they're all the same family. But if you got it from any of those old school guys that were all together, living in the same compound, training every day, then yeah, you get some pretty legit credentials, and so it's been a blessing because when I started, man, it was still very much underground.
Mhm.
I started right after the UFC. First UFCs came out in
Yeah.
1993, and it was a really special time. Joe Rogan was on the mat with me.
No
Uh,
way, no.
Eddie Bravo. I mean, I've wrestled Joe, 1,000 times back in the
No
day.
way, really?
Oh yeah,
That's
Eddie
amazing.
Bravo. I helped him get ready for his match that made him famous against Hoyler. So
Yeah.
it was a very very small world. And the other day, the reason I want to ask you this because I know you were a proponent of females
Mhm.
learning self defense. I wrote an article on kind of what is the best martial art, and I think I need to post it
Yeah.
to my website so people can read it again. But it was for a small paper in our town, and one of the things in this post, this Christian guy, well-meaning dad or well-meaning pastor, said that it's essentially, he said it's wrong to let your kids and your
Mhm.
female daughters train jujitsu.
Yeah, I
And
saw
then
the same one. I know what you're talking about.
yeah, and then he kind of doubled down on it when somebody responded, "Hey, there's schools where it's the girls that are training against each other, and so
Yeah.
you don't have that male female contact at those ages." And and he was like, "Well, essentially it was unbecoming," but he said something like, "Oh, it's weird" or whatever. And I
And
and I
and
kind
they'll
of
and
I
they'll
kind of
never be
pushed
able to
back.
beat a guy. Like, even if they train with girls, what's the point? They'll never be able to beat a guy who attacks them.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to get into that, but I just kind of respond to the guys like, "Listen, man, you should stick to some things,
Yeah.
get out
Well,
of
did you
here."
see, I think if it's the same person, he started then talking about how he's been in street fights, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's sort of
Oh,
like, hey, picture or it didn't happen.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if I saw that, I would have challenged him to a friendly match, only slapping. He can do anything he wants to me. I'll only slap him.
Mhm.
Or I'll just wrestle him only, and
Yeah.
and we'll see how he does with his street skills. But my point in my article, and this is what I wanted to get you to weigh in on, is if we are in a dangerous society, and it for a while we were very civilized because the
Mhm.
colonizers came over here and civilized us, and it was a messy thing. And being civilized, we had a structure of protection. Naturally, we had men that would intervene to protect women. Now we're in the state of the world where on a subway people pull out their phones when somebody is actively
Yeah.
being raped or brutalized. So it is incumbent upon parents, fathers to teach their girls how to fight, how to shoot, and teach their sons how to be protectors. I think we have to do that because we are in dangerous times.
Yeah, man.
The
And to
only
add to the subway story, though, it's even worse. If you do step in, you're going to court. And even if you
That's
win
right.
the case, your life's gonna be really ruined for a number of years.
Yeah, that's right. Now, but it's the ants against the grasshoppers though. If we all collectively start standing up,
Yeah.
we will overwhelm the system. If we start saying enough, no more, and I do believe that tide's going to turn. Especially under this administration, I think we're going to get rid of and rout out some of those judges that believe that way, some of those police that believe that way. Get back to a time where the sheriffs reign a little bit more supreme, and defending yourself is a thing that we can do.
Mhm.
But women, especially girls, need to learn some form of self defense. A weekend of instruction using those dummies and try simulating kicking somebody in the balls and all that sort of stuff does not work.
Yeah.
The only thing that does work is being able to slip the grip of another human being,
Mhm.
control their body through leverage, and make your way to safety.
Perfect
Because
description.
because making your way to safety is what women should do. This is not a Marvel movie. You
Right.
can't stand and fight. And now there are women that can do that, but they are few and far between, and they train every day,
Mhm.
all day, and they fight professionally.
Yep.
Those are the women that can maybe stand up against and fight a guy, but even them, because we are so I don't know if you've ever seen, like, for the first time a gal come into class that actually experiences for the first time in their life a strength of a man. I had this conversation with a gal the other day who was like, my mind was blown. I
Yeah.
thought I could really get after it. I'm a strong
Yeah.
gal. I'm an
Especially
athlete.
if they grow up on these Marvel movies where a
Yeah,
100-pound girl kicks 5 men across the room with one kick.
yeah.
If that's all they've
No,
seen, they think, "Well, I could probably do that."
no, she said her brain reset in that moment, and
Mhm.
she felt like a level of primal terror that
Yeah.
men can be that much stronger physically than women.
Yep. Well, that's what Henner and his wife Eve Gracie, they put together something called Women Empowered program, and it teaches what you just said. So the goal of Women Empowered is not to train a woman to tap out every man she fights on the street. She's not going to make her into a street fighter, but it's the principles you just said, which is that the ways that women are assaulted are different than how a man's assaulted.
That's right.
No one's going to come up to you and grab you by the hair and throw you into their trunk and drive you somewhere to rape you and kill you. But that is a very common thing. If it's going to happen to a woman, that's a good chance that's what's going to be. So the
Yeah.
Women Empowered class teaches them just what you said, breaking the grip, using leverage, with the goal not of you're going to tap some 300-pound guy, but you're going to slow it down so he decides, hey, I just wanted a quick victim and this is not working out, or the police get there.
That's right. That's right. And that is, again, I think, guns can make a big difference if a woman is training with firearms on a regular basis. Pepper spray can make a big difference. Tasers can make a big difference. I think all of those are part of the equation, or can
Mhm.
be. But all of those, on top of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah.
all require you to train regularly,
Yep.
and
Well,
it
that's what
is
the guy
not a
said
weekend
is
course.
just give your wife a gun. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking, yeah, I mean, if that works, that works. But when you're reaching in there to get your gun, now the bad guy knows you've got a gun too. And he
yeah,
just goes, oh, thank you very much. I'll take that.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I taught weapons retention for a security academy, vocational training school for military guys, all of which have gone through multiple combative programs in their respective branches of service. All of them, at the end of the course, and I think my record was something like 16, 17 in a row. And if you're very highly trained, how easy that is for a very high level black belt. But they would all try to arrest me,
Hmm.
and I would steal all of their weapons and
Wow.
simulate shoot them or tap them out multiple times. I would have 2 minutes each with each guy. I'd at least tap them once, if not twice, maybe sometimes 3 times in quick succession. And I would have a 30-second to 1 minute break in between. And I'd go for 16, 18 guys,
Yeah.
and no one ever won. No one
Yeah.
ever won against me.
Wow. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me at all. And what you said at the beginning was you're teaching weapon retention. So in other words, people are training to retain their weapons. If you hand your wife a gun and say, "Hey, just shoot him," she doesn't have that training, right? Maybe she
Yeah.
does, maybe she doesn't shoot the guy. But what the Women Empowered or a similar kind of jujitsu class does is you're not training her to just start being a thug. You're training her to know how to get out of that situation and avoid being assaulted. So I can't recommend jujitsu enough to women. My wife and my daughter have both taken it. And the other thing is maybe more. So I think there's two problems, right? There's the does it work? And they'll say, well, 120-pound woman, she'll lose against any man. Well, again, the goal is not you're going to tap him, you're going to slow him down and get out of there. But the other one is more the
Yeah.
moral thing. Like you said, is it unbecoming? Isn't it against
Yeah. And
scriptural
that's
view of
what I wanted to
women?
share. Yeah. No, that's great, because the idea, look, it is great. It's a great level of physical contact, wrestling another person.
Mhm.
And that could lead to trouble in a jujitsu school, especially when you've got 14, 15-year-old kids wrestling, and all that. And so the question is, should we avoid that? Should your daughters never train? Should your wife never train on the mat and learn how to escape a stronger male?
Yeah.
What do you say to that? And I'll give you my perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think two things in our school, like in the Women Empowered school, a lot of times women join it because they have been assaulted. And so
Yeah.
that's a women only class for their comfort. you might have a male instructor, but he always has a female instructor with him. It's never just guys teaching it. And the girls can train together because of that setting. But then if they're in the, say, the standard combatives, what I've noticed is even without saying anything, we have a lot of students, and they kind of just self-divide up. They Girls want to roll with girls and guys want to roll with guys. And it's very rare that I've seen it otherwise. But even when it is, my response is it's not weird unless you make it weird. Like, it kind
Yeah.
of shows me what's on your mind. If when you walk past a gym and you look in there and see people doing this athletic thing, your mind is on sex because it's not on our mind at all.
No, and so I I had all right, famous story. Anton Fuqua, the director of Training Day, was interviewing one of my friends. Johnny Strong is his name. He's an actor. In Black Hawk Down, he played one of the snipers.
Oh, wow.
Been in a bunch of movies. Very talented musician as well, and he was a very talented jujitsu guy. And it was back in the day that he was interviewing for a movie part with Anton Fuqua. It was back before Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was common, but people were
Mhm.
understanding it. And I'll change the language here a little bit. But Anton Fuqua leaned across the desk and was like, "Don't you do that jiu-jitsu crap? Isn't that a little gay?" And and my buddy replied in the Johnny Strong way. He says, "I could be butt ass naked, jump across this table, choke you unconscious, and not have a gay thought go through my mind."
Yeah.
and and the truth is that you don't have that on your mind when you're training jujitsu. Now, there are very stirred up, running hot teenagers.
Yeah.
That is the job of the instructor to watch as an instructor about those people,
Yeah.
about those pair ups. I mean, it is our job as teachers to pair people up. If
Yeah.
they don't,
Exactly.
like you said, in my experience is also they kind of self segregate.
Yeah.
But it is pretty important for girls to feel the strength of a responsible male,
Yeah.
and understand, the pressure, and become comfortable with that pressure, and become able to handle that pressure, and grow in their skill, because they can train, women on women for a very long time and
Yeah.
learn a lot of skills. But if they aren't, training with a much, much better, bigger woman or a male, at a certain point, they need to have that reality. And there's a way that you can do it safely. There's
Yeah.
a way that you can do it morally. And when the kids are little, there's none of that. It's not in their brains.
Yeah.
When the kids are young, coming up, and I think that's a super valuable time, and they're pretty evenly matched,
Yep.
and there's no funkiness, and they're having fun, and they're learning body awareness and all of that. But it can be done. My daughters all train. They all have gotten good at it. They all are very capable. They're strong. They train CrossFit. They are as capable as girls can be. They
Yeah.
also shoot. And I think that is our job, is to give them that, and it leads to a lot of confidence too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like you said, even just for guys, people will say, well, that's isn't that like homosexual or something? So I know feminist professors will say, oh, he's just a latent homosexual. This is how they do that to get that out of their system. But again, it's sort of like that really shows that they're the perverts because
Oh yeah.
that's on their mind. That's not on our mind. We're enjoying a sport that, I mean, it
Men
stands
love
out to me.
men love combat.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
it's
combat, testing each other is a great
yeah,
way to
that's
bond.
right.
It's merit based. The
Yeah,
pecking order on a mat. You've experienced this.
yep.
The a pecking order happens quickly.
Mhm.
We're all friends.
Well, what
We're
I love too in
at each other.
jiu-jitsu is how legit the belts are because I'm not putting down other sports, other martial arts, but in some of them you're like a black belt after a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But man, when I'm rolling with my like a brown belt friend, that's a lot. I mean, it's just a difference in kind, and
Yes.
you know it. And so it is merit based. But I also it stood out to me more than ever before that God could have challenged Jacob to anything. He could have said, "Here, hold this stick. I'm going to throw a ball at you. You hit it." But he
Right.
wrestled him. And there's something about that where it's like, yeah, and it was a tap wrestle. I mean, it was a submission wrestle. We're not going to stop until someone submitted.
Yeah.
And that's was what God wanted Jacob to think through. And that the intimacy of that, of rolling in that setting. So I do think there's a lot of great lessons to learn. I mean, Henner has a book out, 32 principles, applying what he does to business.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm a
lots of
big I'm a big fan of theirs. I appreciate one of my buddy owns one of their schools up in the, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene area of Idaho. Yeah, really good dude, former Machado guy as well, and needed to change affiliations, and it was a good move for him. And
Mhm.
I love also that the Gracie Academy is more like where I came from and grew up with, which it was a martial art first, a
Yeah,
game second.
yeah,
And we've gone so far into sport jujitsu stuff that they're
exactly.
doing things that don't work in real life,
Mhm.
and they're doing things that are great for the sport
Yep.
of actual jujitsu, but not as a martial art.
Yeah, that's what I love about it too. Because I'm not at my age, I'm not planning on ever competing in a sport, but it's all about punch safety. What's going to happen on the streets? You're learning jujitsu, essentially. I mean, Brazilian street fighting. And
Yeah,
so when someone says like, "What's the best?" Well, it's the best. They only started
yeah,
losing in the UFC when the other guys learned jujitsu and used jujitsu as well.
that's
It
right.
wasn't as if like the sumo wrestler guy started beating the jujitsu guys.
No, everybody grapples. Everybody has learned that. They're all well-rounded to a certain extent, and the guys that have that well-rounded game that can also, fight from the top. I mean, my game, I can play just about any game I want in terms
Mhm.
of just my jujitsu is deep. I can play a bottom game. I can play a sport jujitsu style game. I can play
Yeah,
gi, no gi, all that. But if I'm going to fight somebody in real life, I'm going to play a very dominant top game.
yeah.
I only am going to my back if it's an accident in that
Oh yeah,
world.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the fight philosophy steps that the Gracies teach for their combatives was it kind of came out of the old Gracie challenge videos where anyone could come in and so they just analyze
We
those.
had
They
that
said,
back in my day, just so you
yeah,
know.
isn't that
That's how
awesome?
that's how old I am.
Yeah. But basically that these kind of fights start standing up, but they always end up on the ground. So
Yeah.
you got to learn how to make that transition according, to the best for your advantage. And you do want to be on top. So if for some reason you end up on the bottom, you learn how to sweep and get on top, and then you learn how to control them. And the goal in a street fight is everyone leaves safe
Yeah.
because if you do permanent damage, even if you were right, you are going to court. It's going to cost you a lot of money and
Yeah, you
time.
don't wanna bounce a guy's head off of the concrete,
If you can
I mean,
avoid, yeah, if
that's
you can avoid that. So the goal is to submit them and then, wait, law enforcement or something shows up. The goal is not to like break their arm off or blind them or something
right.
because at the end of it, you also have to live with your own conscience. And you want to know you did the right thing in that setting.
Well, hey, we have about 2 minutes.
Right.
I would love to, see how we support you. How do we follow
Yeah.
you? And you and I should probably, go deeper on this
Mhm.
at some
I want
point,
to.
but I would love to have you on
Because there's
again.
a lot of applications, like all this jujitsu stuff that we know, and there's a ton I could learn from you. I wanna come and get some lessons from you. But it's so much life applications for Christians in the spiritual warfare we're in
Amen.
right now. It to end up the story though about your article and about Twitter, Jocko himself. I mean, for me, Jocko is like, if he says
Yeah,
something, you be quiet and you
I met
listen.
him. He and I started, I think, the same day, the same month
No
on
way.
our
Right. So
journeys.
yeah, same thing though. If you said, but he ended up commenting on this, and the guy argued with Jocko.
Yeah.
And my set, I'm like, man, if Jocko tells me something, if I was wrong and Jocko tells me I'm wrong, even if I still think I might be right, I'm still going to be quiet because I'm
I'm gonna
probably
guess I'm gonna guess that dummy didn't know who Jocko was. And again, stay in your lane, bro.
that's the thing. Yeah. Well, what I did was I quoted from Proverbs 31 because one of the things of Proverbs 31 woman it says she strengthens her arm, and so I think there's this view of women that they're supposed to just like be quiet and not do much, and I think that that's not at all what the scriptures teach, and the idea that the women can be in jujitsu, but also really you want women in the spiritual war.
That's
When
right.
when Paul says demolish all arguments against the knowledge of God, that's not just directed to men. Women should be prepared to do that too.
That's
And so
right.
I think there's a whole attitude probably that if we looked into it, we'd find out there's this whole attitude about really what men and women are doing that we would disagree with. But yeah, I would appreciate people if you listen to this, come to my Substack, Dr. Owen Anderson, and you can contact me there. If you have any questions for me, you can shoot me a message. I'll be happy to talk with you. But also, just I've got a couple of years now of articles about the kinds of nonsense that you're going to encounter at a state university. And then I've got my
Well,
own webpage where I've got a lot of my professional writing because I'm a professor too. So I have to write books and articles. And that's on my webpage, Dr. just drowandanderson.com.
Well, I'll send you that article and I'll post it in the show notes here that I wrote. And
Good. Yeah.
you can, if you want, you
Yep.
can put that on your Substack or comment on it if you think that
I will.
what I wrote worked.
I will
But
for sure.
yeah, let's definitely get together again and let's be
Well, if
friends.
you're ever down in Phoenix, let me know. Because you also Megaton's down here. Do you know him?
I don't know him, but I mean, obviously know of him. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in Phoenix all the time,
Okay.
being associated with Turning Point and all that stuff. So we'll definitely have to roll.
Let's do it. I'll be great.
All right. I appreciate you, brother. And to God be the glory. And we are out. Hey, thank you for watching or listening to this show. If you are someone who listens to us on the podcast apps, please go to our Rumble channel. Even if you're not going to watch us there, we'd appreciate you hitting subscribe. We want to boost those numbers up and make sure that that channel continues to grow. But again, thank you so much for listening to us.